What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the North Report Podcast. This episode, we're going to be talking about Vegas odds and season predictions for the NFC North. Joining me on my podcast today is, of course, our very, very luxurious and noble leader, NFC North Report. Hello there, NFC North Report. Vegas puts the Detroit Lions at 6.5 wins. How do you feel about that?
To me, I think that's generous. I think Detroit is a mess. And I think that under Matt Patricia, they've struggled and they will continue to struggle. Stafford is coming off a back injury. It's reoccurring. They lost Darius Slay. They had a good draft, but not a great draft. And I don't think that they have enough developed, keyword developed, talent to compete in the NFC North this year.
I mean, you're not wrong. In any aspect of that, you're not wrong. Even on paper, Detroit is talented, but to keep up in that division they're in, and with everything that they've lost and the coaching woes that Matt Patricia has, there's no way. It's very, I would say 6.5 is very generous, without a doubt. But what about, let's see, thoughts on the Packers to win 9 games? What are your thoughts on the Packers to win 9 games?
So to put the Green Bay Packers at to win 9 games, that seems like a push to me. It's a pretty accurate prediction. The Packers were not a 13-3 team to me last year. They were 7-1 in one-possession games. And whether that was luck, the referees, or Aaron Rodgers, doesn't really matter. Those types of wins don't translate over to the next season. And that's not how you build a team for future success.
Absolutely. And you're right. That 7-1 thing. I mean, it's a lot of people want to just look at the big record and nail it as it is and say, well, my team went 13-3, but you got to really break down and look at those games to see, well, how were they 13-3? It's just like Chicago a couple years ago in 2018. Chicago realistically could have been a 14-2, 13-3 team had they had a damn kicker. So you put those into a factor and you make a really good point about all of that. And now we have the Vikings who are, let's see, Minnesota's at, what do they have them at in Vegas? 8.5? 8.5? Does that sound right to you?
Yes. To me, I think that's an easy over. They added 2 starters through the draft, and while they lost a few starters on defense, Mike Zimmer is a fantastic defensive coach, although he will never win a Super Bowl in Minnesota. But for now, he can help win games. Let's not forget about Kirk Cousins. Say what you want about him, but he wins a lot. He may not win big games, but you only need to win so many big games to put you over 8.5 wins. Minnesota feels like a 9 or 10 win team to me.
Yeah. I also don't find that hard to argue with at all. And Kirk Cousins, a lot of people, they want to pin him as just kind of a has-been or a washout, but he does have promise and he does win games. I think my biggest concern for Minnesota isn't losing Diggs. It's this whole Dalvin Cook contract thing that might be happening this season. So we'll see how that shapes up, because I think if say, for instance, Dalvin Cook pulls a Le'Veon Bell or a Melvin Gordon, that's going to be a bigger hit to that offense than it was to Pittsburgh or to the Chargers. All right, and so finally, they have Chicago to break even once more in 2020. How do you feel about that one?
To me, that feels like a perfect number, so it's a push. 8-8 is what Mitchell Trubisky and Nick Foles feel like. I didn't think their draft was fantastic, as it's hard to have a great draft if you don't have a first-round pick. Instead of spending money to fill the offensive line, which was arguably the reason they didn't succeed, and to spend it on another pass rusher doesn't make sense to me. However, I think they're too good of a roster to be terrible. I think they're too well coached of a roster to be terrible. So that's why I think 8 is a push and it feels fair.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel fair. And the unfortunate part, and this really goes for all the teams of the NFC North, but especially Chicago right now, is they are a good team. They have a championship defense. They have arguably the best defense in that division. Now, of course, Minnesota and Green Bay are starting to get even tougher defenses, but Chicago you have Khalil Mack, Eddie Jackson, Kyle Fuller, and the list goes on. And you add Robert Quinn. So I think Chicago's going to be a lot more dangerous. It's all obviously on offense. And what really made me scratch my head about Chicago this year in the draft was the fact that there was plenty of day one starters the second day, and they didn't grab one of them with 43 or 50.
Well, day one offensive line starters. The one thing I will say is that the Bears offensive line coach has reportedly fallen in love with Rashad Coward, I believe. So if they really think that he's their guy, they're not gonna bring in other people to make him compete. They're gonna give him the love and support that they should have given Mitchell Trubisky.
Yes. The offensive line, like, there was some might have needed some grooming, but as compared to like the depth chart that appears to be for Chicago for line, I don't know how they missed on that and then decided to go what? But was it back to back? And whenever they had the back to back sevens, they went back to back linemen in the 7th round. So, I mean, as bad as I'd love to root for Chicago to be a good team this year, but if you're gonna treat your offensive line like that, I don't know. That's it for this episode of the North Report podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you know what to do. And also, if you haven't subscribed yet, could you please do it? All right. See you later.